Hey guys, welcome to the Bandemic podcast. I am your host, Ray Wada. Today on the show, we have Mr. Alex Hernandez. Alex is a great bass player from the Coastal Bend that plays for Poetry and Prose. He's also an adjunct faculty at Del Mar College for the SRT program. In addition to that, he's the head of Sound and Light at the House of Rock. Today on the show, we're going to be discussing compression, maybe some tips and tricks for you young musicians out there, and a whole lot of cool stories about things that are going on in the Coastal Bend, past, present, and future. So stick around for the show. We're going to have a great time today. All right, guys. So we are here with Mr. Alex Hernandez. If you've done live music anywhere in Corpus Christi, you have definitely rubbed shoulders with this genius. He's a great guy, and we're really glad to have him on the podcast today. So welcome, Alex Hernandez. What's up, man?
Hey, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. When you said, hey, you want to do a podcast? I'm like, all right, cool. Like probably a couple of months from now, we'll get things organized. Then I saw you posted, hey, first 2 seasons already booked. And I was like, oh, man, okay, so probably till next year, once my name comes up, then you're like, hey, next week. Like, okay, season 1, episode 1. Like, all right, let's do this. I'm incredibly honored.
We
Incredibly
like to
honored.
start strong, man. We like to start strong. So we're super stoked to have you. And this is, really laid back. Like this whole podcast is very much about Corpus getting to know the people that are doing music, that are promoting music, and just in the music. You know what I mean? Because sometimes we go and we see a show and maybe we don't know who's on stage. This is definitely aimed at connecting you with the people that are doing music.
That's
So
fun.
what better
Yeah.
what better way? What better way? So tell me a little bit about yourself, man. Where did you get your start in music? I know you're from Mathis, right?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So give us a little rundown. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh man. Okay. So just sticking with the music stuff. So it really started with my uncle. He was playing guitar, and he needed somebody to practice with, and so he taught my brother how to play music. And so while he wasn't able to play outside, he was, my uncle was making him learn how to play music. And then him and my brother is essentially like where it all started with. I brought up my uncle because that's where he was teaching him music, but it was pretty much my brother hanging out with him, watching him and his friends do his stuff. That was where I learned about like Mr. Bungle and Primus and Metallica, and like
Yes.
that was like fundamental, like hearing stuff like that, the things that he was into and his passion, and that's where that really started. And so my journey was, hey, I want to learn to play guitar because he played guitar. So he was like,
Yeah.
okay, here's a bass, get your fingers strong, and I'll teach you some guitar. And I just never left bass. And that was pretty much it. So I started bass. Oh man, I can't even remember how old I was, like 11 or 12 or something, maybe 10 or 11. I was playing bass. And then in a band, I joined band because my cousin Henry, he played in band. He played the saxophone. And so I picked the euphonium because it was the cheapest instrument. You just had to buy the mouthpiece. And I knew, I mean, growing up in Mathis and not very affluent. So I knew like, okay, like I can get in a band. This is how much it costs. I don't have to spend a lot. Played euphonium all the way up until, and I had some really great teachers. My musical life is essentially just a series of great teachers and people that I've found or came my way that I've learned everything. And
Nice.
yeah, and my band director, I have a huge respect for band directors because they affected my life. So Juan Blanco, he was one of my first band directors that really taught me a lot of stuff, and he unfortunately committed suicide while I was in high school. So that was a big part of us. Um, yeah, and so after, and then series of band directors, Benitez, Eddie Benitez, I think
Mm-hmm.
he was our band director. Greg Ewing was another pivotal band director that was really influential on me and my friends in Mathis. So I had to definitely give credit for all those people. After,
That's amazing.
yeah, after, and it was funny because I would tell people, hey, I want to do music for my life, like for my career. And for people in Mathis, they're like, oh, so you want to be a band director? I was like, no, absolutely not. I know what we put them through. so so all my band director friends that I know now, like I have huge, incredible respect for them. Like those are the people who are going to influence people like me that this stuff is great, this stuff is cool, and then doing discipline and focus and instilling like a drive and passion.
Yeah.
So
So was that like a very clear shift when you were in band where you're like, this is it? Like I'm going to do music. Or
um
was that later on? When did that shift happen?
okay, so
Where
so the shift of like I always wanted to do music, but I didn't know what you could do to like have a career in it or be sustainable. You know, there was a couple
yeah.
of people in Mathis that played in bands, but like not anybody that was like this is all they did and they didn't have a side hustle. Like I
Yeah.
remember a kid hearing that whole saying like, "Oh, you want to be a musician? First thing you need to do, get a real job." And that was my reaction. I was like, "Oh man, like that's funny, but that's terrifying that it's not possible." As I got older and it did become my job, I realized that no, get a real job first, start doing music, really build up the music side, and then once you have that ready to go, then you can let go of the real job, and now you're doing music all the way. And as I got
Yeah.
older, it completely reversed in my head, like, oh, now it makes sense. So I would tell anybody, if you want to
Yeah.
get into
Yeah.
music, get a real job first, and then you'll eventually find your way there. Yeah.
Definitely, that's cool. Like I definitely have that same mindset where it's like you gotta have some side hustles.
Hmm.
And speaking of side hustles, you do sound as well as play bass as well. I've seen you in mariachi bands. I know I've seen you in mariachi bands. But that makes you such a rounded person. So can you speak a little bit maybe about like just the roundedness of not just being a bass player, but also being a violin player as well, and also knowing how to take care of sound and recording and stuff like that.
That's a really, really great question because like I've thought about that from the beginning. That was actually a very important decision. Every move that I've made in my life has always been a series of like conclusions that okay, if I'm going to do this, then I have to do this or understand this in a much grander conceptual way. So realizing that, you know, I knew I could play bass,
Yeah.
and there's people that make their living playing bass, but I guess I didn't have the self-esteem to be like, well, I'm going to be the greatest bass player ever. I was like, okay, well, I can learn bass. I know euphonium. I'm going to learn recording production. I'm going to learn like, you know, doing as many different things as I can. Like if I realize that if I just wanted to be doing music, it didn't matter what it was. So if I wanted to be part of a music scene or a music industry or make that my career, I need to be able to do as many things as possible so that I'm valuable and an
Yes.
asset. And this was like probably out of high school realization that like, okay, if I want
Okay.
to do this crazy idea, then okay, I gotta be really good at playing bass. You know, I should probably learn another instruments, you know, and that's where the violin thing came from where I had I wanted to go to college, and it was funny. I was recruited to Del Mar by Dr. Russell, who played euphonium
Okay.
from
Okay.
at Del Mar, and she was like, "Hey, Alex, you should come over to Del Mar and you play euphonium and stuff like that." I'm like, all right, cool, cool, yeah, I'll go to Del Mar. That's a good first step." Then I thought like, but I don't want to play euphonium. You know, I thought
Yeah.
nobody gets gigs on euphonium. Like I don't see guys getting hired like that. And so I was like, well, violin's cool. I'll sure, cool. I'll pick it up. And that was like my decision to play violin, like one of the stupidest decisions ever because it's incredibly difficult instrument to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was my thinking. I was like, well, I know bass. I should learn the top. So let me learn violin. And cheesy as it is, I saw Fiddler on the Roof in high school in English class. And I remember
Okay.
like just sitting there in English class and then, you know, tradition. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool, whatever. And then Itzhak Perlman does the whole solo. And I stopped and was like, what the hell? That's possible? That like I've heard violin stuff before, like little melodies, but nothing that it was like the first time hearing Les Claypool, where
Yes. That. Yeah.
I was like, cool, I can play bass. I know some Metallica and some, you know, AC/DC or whatever. And then you hear Primus and it's like, it's a bass? What the hell is that? And so that was where I was like, okay, like violin's cool. I'll just learn that and maybe I'll get some gigs or something like that. And I'll just be a more rounded individual musician so I can like have something. And it worked out. I joined a mariachi group, and that paid for
Yeah.
the last half of my like pretty much my recording engineering studies. Mariachi had paid for,
Nice.
and it was a pivotal part of me like being even more around it, because the individuals I met and worked with while playing violin and mariachi, I learned so much else about it. Yeah, so that's like the violin kind of thing. And
Yeah. So,
recording. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say you kind of segued into it because I was gonna ask you about your recording because that's just another step. So you start with tuba, you start with bass actually,
Mm-hmm.
and then you went to tuba, into
Euphonium,
violin,
euphonium. There is a
euphonium,
difference, and
euphonium.
I'm still. I don't play it
Oh,
anymore, but all of us, it was like, it's not a baritone, it's a euphonium. We're not tubas.
euphonium. I should know better. I should definitely know better. So yeah, so that just opened the door to recording engineering. So
Hmm.
was that because of Delmar has such a strong program with that?
Yeah, I was lucky to get in and see it grow. So the great Dr. Paul Bissell, and so this is
Yes.
another person in my life that was a huge influence on me. And um, yeah, I get to work with him now, and it's insane. Like we're colleagues. This is super weird. Okay,
Yes. Yeah.
you guys give me way too much responsibility. Um, so I'm in Delmar, and I took up studying violin with Todd Ale, who was another great professor individual that helped me through my life and my career. Um, I was doing theory and composition. And so I thought,
Nice.
if I'm going to study music, I'm not going to do performance. Like, I knew I'm not going to be the greatest violinist. I'd be happy just playing second violin. Like, hey, like that, those are cool parts. Those are really interesting, intricate parts. So I was happy with that. And I was like, okay, so let me do theory and composition. That sounds really fun. Beethoven was a huge influence. Danny Elfman. Uh, the first day of class, they
Nice.
asked us, "Who are your biggest musical influences?" And I was like, Ludwig van Beethoven, Danny Elfman, and Mike Patton, and that's it. I mean, that's not all of it, but those are
Yeah.
the big three. So I'm studying theory and composition with Dr. Neil Flory. Um, great composer, great teacher, like super passionate about music theory, and the art of it. And I was getting to the point where I had did all my classes that pertain to all that stuff, and I had music literature, history, and I think government or something like that. And I was like,
The essentials that you have to take, right?
yeah. And it got to that point, and Dr. Bissell was doing like music technology and like an electroacoustics class, I believe.
Nice.
And at a certain point, it was interesting seeing it, because I had some friends taking like, oh, all these different like computer classes and production and stuff. And I think they had a recording class or something like that. And he had all these classes built up to a point where he realized, or I guess it was his grand plan or something, that cool, now I have an entire like recording program built up. And Delmar got accredited. And the year that they got accredited for a sound recording technology program, I was like, let's go there. That sounds fun. Let's do this. And
Nice.
I had done like some light, small recording stuff. I mean, you play in a band with friends, let do
Yes.
some
Yeah,
recording
yeah, yeah.
things. And so that's where I got started with the SRT program. And
So what was the first thing you recorded with? Was it tape or did you go straight to C or was it CD? What
it
was
was
when you started your journey, because you said that it started when you were younger. So like was that tape or was it, recording off of somebody's computer or
I remember, I mean, it was like, okay, recording songs that I liked off of the radio, just hitting, play and record at the same time, holding the
yeah.
holding the tape deck up to the TV, because I really like some like the Mission Impossible soundtrack, which Danny Elfman
Yeah.
had did. I didn't realize that, and I was like, I love this arrangement. So, and I couldn't buy it, and it wasn't available at the time. So, um, like little things like that, playing around. My cousin and I remember we were playing around, like making mock-up like news reports, doing like audio tape recording skits. I think the first time I
Nice.
ever really like recorded myself, I had an Ace of Base tape that I really dug at the time, but I think I was already falling out of fashion with it. And I just recorded myself playing euphonium. I was like, I wonder what I sound like. Like I'm curious. And
Yeah.
so I put the piece of tape on the tape recorder, recorded over Ace of Base, and I think that was the very first time I ever recorded myself. Yeah.
That's
I hadn't
amazing.
thought about that in a while. Um,
So now you're in the digital realm,
yeah, yeah. And
and that
I don't have that like I come from tape and I understand analog. I'm a digital baby. Yeah, I knew that
yeah, yeah,
full
yeah.
well.
So do you went in your classes because you're an adjunct, right, at Del Mar for
Yes.
recording technology?
Hmm.
Do you start with that and just tell them, hey, never forget where you came from, or is it kind of like, okay, we were there, let's stay here because this is what the future is?
Yeah. So the way that we teach the class, it's Dr. Bissell's house, and I just help him out. We start with analog concepts. I mean, we're not going about like what specifics of tape in like audio engineering one, but it's here's the fundamentals of sound and audio acoustic stuff, how energy is kind of passed, polarity and phase, frequencies, understanding decibels. And by the end of that first class, which anybody can take, there's no prerequisites
Uh-huh.
for it, it's signal flow. And you have to understand how a console like works out. All these
Okay,
consoles
yeah,
throughout history, they've pretty much ran the same since the first one was built. Built by Bill Putnam. With the way it's been laid out, and so it's all been following the same format. Once digital happened, digital pretty much like it digital opens the gates up for anything and everything and all
yeah,
possibilities,
yeah.
but it's so much easier to understand. Okay, here's how traditionally things worked out. Now when you go to a DAW, okay, here's the signal flow, here's how things come in, here's the way they do aux channels, or here's the way a compressor works, or how things need to be routed. Yeah, so we teach them a fundamental core of here's how an analog console works, and even here's how an Allen and Heath analog console works. Here's a Yamaha.
Yeah.
Here's a Soundcraft. And we bring up other examples of different consoles. But pretty much, they're all different cars. But you jump in a car and you're like steering wheel, shifter, gas, brake, clutch. Let's go. Cool. You get
Yeah,
another
yeah,
car
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like Porsche feels kind of weird, but boom, you just take off. Yeah.
Still has a gas pedal, still has a steering wheel and
Hmm.
everything else.
Hmm. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense, and I'm really glad that you guys do that because I have a couple of friends that are in that program, and they're just like they're growing like leaps and bounds each semester,
Oh,
and it's just
good.
kind of like really cool to see. You
Good.
know what I mean? And it's a really good segue because we have actually this little segment that we like to call "What's in the Box."
Oh, what's in the box?
What's in the
Good thing I'm
box?
not married.
Well, yeah, 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 yeah. So, all right. So, what we have in the box today, and this is gonna be awesome. This is a compressor.
Hey, Cali
Yeah.
76.
So based after the 1176 that we all love in the
Right,
recording
right. Ooh, are
industry.
we getting nerdy? Let's
So
get nerdy,
we're
man.
gonna get nerdy. We're gonna get nerdy for a little while.
Oh.
Which, yes, I'm so excited about getting nerdy with you. So
Let's talk
I was
about
like,
compressors.
let's talk compressors because there's so much confusion
Mm-hmm.
with compression, especially in a studio format. So maybe just give us the basics of how you use or how you teach compression maybe in a studio format and how you use it because bass players are very like specific about compression.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, some people love it and use a ton of it. Some people just where are you at with compression?
Oh man, this is fun. You're asking a lot of cool questions because these are things that I've like I just literally sit and think about and just ponder. I'm like, yeah, yeah, okay. So compression, man, yeah, it's super difficult talking because there's like that stomp box. There's compression like that where okay, now we're kind of shaping the sound of what we're gonna use to make it like an aesthetic. So really slamming into it might do something. It might make it pop more. It might make it a little bit more stable. And then there's like compression in the studio where now you're adding the ability of, let's do also something character, which is what the stomp boxes do, but utilitarian wise, where this bass isn't sitting, or I'm not getting enough energy, or there's things that are popping out that need to be controlled. Cool, let's put a compressor on it and then contain it. um and the different types of compressors, learning compression on digital format is terrible. It's super super terrible, because you have from point 1 microseconds to like 5 minutes or something like that on attack and
Yeah.
release. So yeah, let's get nerdy about this. So that was a struggle for me when I was going through it. And I started laying heavily on like the analog stuff, like the 1176, the
Yes.
LA2A, compressors that like just do a thing, and that one thing, or like the DBX, like the DBX compressor, just like this past year has become like my favorite compressor. Now I've really understood how to use it. It's so simple, but you kind of can use it wrong sometimes, but it
Yeah.
does incredibly amazing things that I can't find other compressors can do. I'll talk about that one in a bit, but like,
Yeah.
I feel like the Waves classic like compressor pack, those are really good ones of like, learn what an 1176 sounds like and what it does. And also there's like basic settings that we've used and found to be really nice. Like, I was at a point where I'm like, put it at like this most generic setting that everybody uses, the slowest attack and the fastest release, and then cool, go on to the next thing. And after I started using it, I realized like, I kind of want the attack a little faster, and let me slow down the release a little bit more. And the more I used it, the more I'm like, yeah, I'm starting to hear it now. Now I can move it, and so now it's taken me a while, but I can hear when the attack and the release has been changed on 76, or it's like, no wait, that's not pumping correctly. Let me slow down that release just a little bit so it's not doing that thing we don't want it to do. That took me a really long time to conceptualize and to hear. And then going to like, once you start to get like what those compressors do, like how aggressive a 76 can be, and how nice and clean an optical compressor can be, or a VCA, or the DBX, the way the DBX compressor slams and it pumps very specifically. It's all program dependent, so you can't go to a digital compressor and be like, oh yeah, it's this setting, because it's always doing something different in response to the audio. I had a really cool reconfirmation about compression, because thinking about what all these great analog compressors do of slower times and releases and attack and ratios, I got to digital and I was like, I just want the simplest compression settings, like I can set on a digital and then just crank it and then not worry about it. And then if I need to revisit it and correct it, cool. And
yeah,
I was messing around with it and I settled on like 10 millisecond attack and like 100 millisecond release. If anybody's you've been messing around with digital compressors and is kind of confused by it, or like, I don't know, or rethinking their compressor game, set it at that 10 and 100, and then just it's generic basic compression. And so I settled on that, and then I've been listening to this podcast. Literally the two greatest engineers in the world, Ken Pooch and Chris Rabel. I mean, obviously they're out of work right now. They got together and they're like, let's talk shop.
Yeah.
If anybody is into live sound or engineering, go check out that podcast. It's so much resources in there. And they had
What's the name of the podcast?
It's he has the wrong end of the snake. What is it called? Oh man,
That's a cool name. The wrong end of the snake.
That's another one he has with his monitor engineer, Ken Pooch does. Oh, it's like Chris Rabel and Ken Pooch. I don't even know what the name is. I forget.
We'll link it at the bottom. We'll link
you
it
just
at the
go
bottom.
YouTube.
I know I put you on the spot there.
Ken Pooch and Chris Rabel. I can't believe I'm gonna have to pull up my phone and look at it. Oh man, I feel like an idiot now. But
we'll link it in the bottom. Don't even worry.
So they have an episode on compression. Oh, Pooch and Rabel. That's it. Yeah. I was saying it the whole time.
Yeah, of course it would be.
Something as basic as that. They had an episode on compression, and Chris Rabald was like, you put a compressor at 10 millisecond, attack and 150 millisecond release. You're basically not committing, and it's a good starting point. And I was like, yes, I was right. Like
That's amazing.
one of the greatest guys in the world is like, yeah, if you go to this setting, that you're not committing to anything, but you're just doing basic compression. I'm like, okay, I'm thinking in the right direction. This is awesome.
Nice. So, okay, so let's get just way nerdy.
Yeah,
Let's get way nerdy.
I didn't get nerdy enough.
Well, you talked about it, and you're like, well, not committing, but definitely using it, right?
Yeah.
So, do you mix from the top down? Do you do top down mixing, or do you go from channel to channel and then end with your master bus?
Top down.
So like just starting with everything on your master bus.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I've done bottom top down, a couple of different things, and like I said, I've thought about this a lot. I've settled on like throwing everything up, and if something bothers me, I just go at it. Okay, I do have my subgroups. So if we're talking about, I have all my channels and everything's subgrouped to something. So there's an all drums subgroup. There's a bass, guitar, and vocals, and a keys. If it's there ready to go in my template. I mix using templates. I do have a master chain, but it's bypass. It's bypass when I start. Okay. It's a limiter and like the SSL bus compressor. I'm that's my main bus compressor, so I'm gonna end up using it eventually. But all that stuff is bypass, and the only thing I really have going is like the bus processing. I use the Plugin Alliance plugins, the SSL E channel. It's the E channel, and you can switch it over to the G channel on the compressor side. So I have the SSL channel strips all on my master bus, and that's basically like, okay, without doing anything, all my channels are running through a console kind of thing. And that goes back to the whole idea of like, okay, here's traditionally how we've mixed, all these great hits, have been done basically and simply on a console through like this kind of like routing. Let me start there, and then digital can allow me to break the rules if I so feel like it. So I mix middle out, I guess.
Nice.
I start with that, and then more often than not, I'm hitting up the drums, because it's like once you lock in like the kick and the snare and then the bass, then and kind of like put the vocal where it needs to be, then everything else is just okay, detail. And you go until it's like I can't hear anything anymore. It sounds cool. Awesome. Yeah. And halfway through I'll put on my bus compressor and limiter. Once things are like, okay, cool, I got some good energy really working together, now let's kind of start to contain some stuff a little bit more. So like halfway through the mix, that thing gets turned on, and then I'll put my limiter on. Yeah.
So it's really like cooking. Like you're starting with a nice base, and then you're not just throwing the garlic in at the first thing.
Yeah.
You're waiting for the right time to throw the
I suppose so. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Cooking's always been a good analogy for mixing. Absolutely. But yeah.
What's your favorite kick drum mic?
The one I own, obviously.
Okay, what's that one? I'm curious.
That's a funny question. Like, what's your favorite anything? It's like the one I own, obviously. So I have. Let's talk about kick drums. SE Electronics came out with some drum mics a couple of years ago, and that's what I use. The SE Electronic V Kick. And it has different switches, so you can change out the EQ. So they have it's a much more traditional flat. There's a flat setting, and then there's like a scoop setting and like an altered high end. And so you can go from like something kind of like an AKG where it's pretty open to something kind of like a D6 where it's definitely processed, And so that gives me a lot of choices in kick drum mics, because by now I know what I'm looking for, and I can tell what I need to get from the kick.
Nice. Well, I saw one of your posts because I was creeping trying to find great questions for
You
you,
do your
and I
research.
saw
Yeah.
I
That's
do. You have
great,
to, right?
man. This is a great podcast. Wow.
So I saw that you modded a mic, and you're like, just follow the directions and solder, and you'll be fine. This is a great mic to begin with, but you're doing little tweaks to certain mics.
Hmm.
Um, what like for a person that's just getting into it, um, maybe wants something that they can mod later on, but that they just need a solid mic right now.
Hmm.
What's the one mic you would tell your students to get? You'd be like, hey man, just get one of these, learn how to use it, and maybe we can do some modifications of the circuitry later. But start with this. What do you tell your
Oh,
students?
okay. So you're talking about like a microphone, a good microphone to start with, and then a mic that has like potentials to be like upgraded or changed if you want to get your hands
Yeah,
dirty and nerdy. Um,
dirty and nerdy.
Dirty and nerdy. Yeah, that's a good one. Man, yeah. I think you're referring to the mic parts microphone that me and two other friends of mine had helped me build. Yeah, you get the PCB board and all the components, and you just like, all right, solder it, put it together. I'm not like as you made it sound like I go and mod this mic and do this and change all that. Like I'm not like that awesome or great or really understand kind of what's going on. But yeah, there's a really great company, and that guy Mike, oh, I forget his last name. If you look up mikeparts.com, and he also runs the microphone database and recording hacks website as well. And it's a
Nice.
it's a huge resource of microphones and reviews and just like straight up like here's kind of what's going on or whatever. And if you find a podcast with the guy or interviews, he's got a lot of information on microphones and how they work. And his website sells mods that you can buy different capsules that sound kind of like AKG, whatever, or the Neumann TLM kind of stuff like that, or the
Yeah.
U87, or the transformers or the circuitry. Um, Man,
So you can make your own, like,
yeah,
just diamond.
yeah,
Like you.
essentially, yeah. Go check out that website, mikeparks.com, MIC, I believe. And yeah, you
Okay.
can just, it's like, yeah, here's all these types of microphones. They're all condenser microphones and some tube microphones, small diaphragm condenser microphones. But yeah, it's
Nice.
really, really cool website, really cool resource. But I was looking for a cheap alternative of a really great mic, and I took a chance, and I was like, all right, cool, $400. I just got to put it together, and
Yeah.
it's absolutely worth it. It does
Nice.
things that my other microphones don't do. This Rode, I think, sounds really, really great. It's a really great microphone. But you know what?
I've seen a lot of people do that.
Long
Yeah.
story short, this microphone right here, the one I own, the Rode NT1A, or is this 2A? This is the Rode NT2A. Do I know my own stuff? It's it's pretty generic. Rode makes really great stuff, and it struck me when I was going through class with Bissell. We would listen to them, and I always thought they sounded more generic. Not, I don't want to say generic, but like
Like transparent,
a
like they
little
didn't have a
bit, yeah.
character.
It's like,
Yeah.
hey, what we were hearing over there is kind of what's coming out of the speakers. Like that's a really good representation of it. Aside from other
Yeah.
microphones that like did a thing and cost thousands of
Yeah.
dollars, and it's like, well, that's cool, that's cool. And so, yeah, this was a great budget microphone that I purchased. I mean, not budget. It's well priced. It's a good microphone and very well built. That's the thing about Rode, is that they manufacture their own stuff,
Yeah.
and they're like micro PCB boards or something like that, where all the components are like super super small. Um, yeah, so I would
I
say
did
that,
hear
and
that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I heard that the owner of Rode, he's doing well because he just bought Kurt Cobain's acoustic from the acoustic sessions.
Whoa.
Yeah, from the unplugged sessions, and he paid like, I think it was like in the millions, like more than any other guitar in history.
Yeah.
So I know he's doing good because we support him too. We got Rode mics all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, they're great. They're a good starter, and like for the price, the more I've used other mics, and I keep coming back to this one, I was like, man, I'm so happy. Like I bought this mic. It was funny. I originally bought it to do a recording session for a talent, and it actually wasn't the mic that sounded the best on that person. Afterwards, I was like, I probably should have used a different mic or whatever. But over the years, I realized that, wow, this mic actually doesn't sound bad on my voice. So anytime I record
Yeah.
myself, I'll use this one. I've used my microphone that I did a shootout one time, and I explained this to the class. I was like, I'm recording a client. Actually, arcade hustlers. We were doing a microphone shootout for a vocal session, and I set
Nice.
up the Delmar Neumann U87. Like, yeah. And then I set up
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
TLM right next to it. Like, yeah. And then I set up my microphone, which I was going to be like, this is going to be the mic. This is it. I built it by hand. This is going to be awesome. And then I threw up the RE20. I threw up the RE20. I was like, whatever. That was the Joker card. Like, hell yeah, let's toss this in there. So
Yeah.
we do some sessions over it, and the Neumann sounded great. It was really great. Both Neumann sounded great. Got to my microphone, I was like, this is gonna be it. And he started singing, and I was like, that's not it. Oh man, like that's a little bright. I mean, it sounds cool, but that's did not match his voice. We get to the RE20, the mic that I was just like, yeah, cool, whatever. I'll toss it in there just so I can show the class or something like that. And I was like, oh man, that's the one. Like that's fitting him perfectly. Like whatever his voice
Yeah.
does uniquely, that mic is helping accentuate and complement his voice. And that was a big lesson I learned that day, because we did the rest of the album with that mic, and it sounds great.
Yeah.
I pull it up now, I'm like, yeah, that was absolutely the mic.
Man, I think it's awesome that you're showing people that, like, maybe, the U87 that's everybody's,
Mm-hmm.
crown jewel. It may not be right for the person.
No, absolutely.
And a lot of people, just come from the thought of, like, no, that's it. That's always it.
Yeah.
But, like, giving your students this opportunity to, like, really just try stuff out and be like, we need to serve the client. That's such a great,
Yeah.
like,
And that,
that's such a great way to approach it.
yeah, that came about because there was always the question of like, what's the best vocal microphone? And like you said, like, what's your best kick drum mic? I was like, well, the one I own, that's the best one. But yeah, having and that's the fun part about this art, is that you can just capture something, and then there's like creating something artistic, something that really, like for me, when I listen to somebody's mix, and it's awesome, I'm just like having that experience of like, whoa, this is coming from the speakers, what the hell? And like, we're always kind of shooting for something that really transcends that. I have a thing about, like, there's different levels of audio engineering. Level 1, you get sound, because for people who are not audio engineering, like, that's kind of a hard part, just getting sound. That's what you get.
Yeah.
Level 1. And then once you're able to get sound, level 2, you get good sound. And now, like, you understand phase, polarity, maybe you're using some EQ, like, yeah, like we're getting sound. This is awesome. We're getting good sound.
Yeah.
The next level, get great sound. And that's it. Like, it's those three. For me, it's been those three levels of, like, starting from the bottom, get good sound, and then now it's just to get great sound.
That's awesome. Man, thanks for going into weeds with me. I enjoy
I
stuff
was
like
hoping we
that.
could. Yeah. I didn't know what we were going to talk about. We didn't have any prerequisite or any setup for this. It was just like, hey, we're going to talk. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, we're going to talk about some Mel Brooks or old talk about The Jerk or something like that. Some different movies, Steve Martin movies.
Well,
yeah.
Well, I have so many questions just because
Let's go for it.
this
Yeah,
is
man.
super cool.
We'll make this a 3-hour Rogan podcast.
Well, being so involved with the music, here in town, what do you see that's going on? What's going on here in town that you see? Because you see a lot of bands and you see a lot of students. So, like, you got your hand in a lot of different things. So, what do you see that's going on in the Coastal Bend? What do you think we're doing really well? What do you think we should be working on as artists in the Coastal Bend?
What are we doing really well, and what are we working on, and what am I seeing? Man, yeah, those would be. Let me think about that. So, I mean, something that I saw, and this is really generic and big and kind of vague, was that like thinking about the punk scene and like in the 80s and the 90s and the metal scene, like when that came out, and seeing like that youth culture, that's what they adopted, like, you know, wearing, you know, the flannels and being into to rock and alternative music. um After a while, like I'm old enough to where I'm detached from whatever like culturally is happening, whatever the hot new words are and stuff like that. And I remember seeing, we started doing some hip hop and rap shows at House of Rock. We had Ian Dior, who's from here in Corpus Christi. Well, he's not here; he doesn't live here anymore. But I think he got to start in here, and the kid's doing amazing now. And it was funny seeing all these like high school, early college kids, you know, like oh yeah, yeah, this is like the demographic, the cultural, you know, like when I was a kid in the 90s, like seeing them, like my brother, he was
Yeah.
a teenager and a product of that era. um and seeing like that age group now and what they're into. um and it was like, wow, like hip hop is like the main thing now. Like I know it's been around or whatever, but like it never struck me as like the whole idea of like, is rock dying, you know, like
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's you know, like rock music in general, like there's no more rock stars, you know, like that's over, you know. There was a big huge freaking purge a couple of years ago. Everybody remembers, like, you know, when Prince died. It was like before, you know, earlier than Tom Petty dying, but a whole bunch of musicians just
Yeah.
started dying off. And it was this weird time of like, wow, like all these people that we had in our lifetime, like now they're gone, now they're passing on, like that era of music is now over, you know. And like, what, and I've always thought about myself, like, what's happening now, what's kind of going on. And seeing the crowd at the Dior, I was like, dude, this is it. Like, these are the people now, they're into hip hop, they're into like this whole rap scene kind of stuff. Like, this is pretty cool, because it was a sold out show. It was a big, massive show, huge production. It was a lot of cool things. But it was great seeing. So in metal and all the metal shows that we do at House of Rock and stuff, there's crowd killers. There's, you know, there's even the emo kids that flare their arms about, which,
Yeah.
I mean, after seeing that happen was like, what the hell is wrong with these people? You know, like, uh, you know, it's like good old fashioned moshing. What happened to that? You
Yeah.
know, like, get off my lawn, you freaking emo dancers, you know. But and that was kind of like what I expect, you know, seeing in a crowd and stuff like that. But like watching the Endure show and some of these hip hop shows, it was like these people start jumping up and down, they're having a good time, and they were doing like old school moshing. Like, yeah, let's just bump into each other and make a big circle and yeah, have fun. And nobody's crowd killing, nobody's doing karate chops or something like that. And I was like, dude, like the way that punk and rock, you know, had their moment with like the youth, like it's rap and hip hop now. Like they're really kind of like embodying it. And I thought that was really something. I don't know, maybe I'm going way too far off into like what my own dumb head thinks about. But that was something that struck me, of like
No.
just standing there, and I was like, wow, this is kind of incredible. Like, I'm watching this whole
Yeah.
cultural thing happen like before me, and I get to see,
Right before your
I get to
eyes.
see them enjoy it, you know, like the way people did in, you know, in the 90s and the 2000s. Like, wow, this is really interesting. Um, so that's big,
So what?
general, vague.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
yes,
yeah. Well, no, it's really interesting that you have a bird's eye view
right.
because you're seeing it happen like in a live
Hmm.
venue. So how do you become to work with House Rock?
Casey Lane. Casey,
Casey
Casey Lane.
Lane.
Yeah, Casey. I'm gonna keep dropping that name, Casey and Casey
Casey.
Lane. Yeah, that'll get me a cup of coffee in the morning. Casey Lane. So, oh man, what did happen? I still remember my first time going into House of Rock and being like, "Whoa, this is a bar." I'm from Mathis, so like being downtown Corpus Christi in a bar with a whole bunch of people, I'm like, this is crazy. Oh man. Um, I didn't really meet him till years later. I started going to open mic. So
Okay.
yeah, I started jamming out at open mics a lot. That's where I had met Cody Strong, the Reverend Matt, a whole bunch of like a lot of my friends and people that I connect with still now are people that I met at open mic when I'll go there years ago. It was fun. And then I became like, we were kind of like a house band for sometimes. You're like, all right, cool, let's start
Yeah.
up a mic, blah, 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 play some bass or whatever, have some drinks and go home. And I was doing audio engineering, and so I'm just happened to meet Casey there or whatever. I was doing the classes at Del Mar, SRT, and Bissell and Casey knew each other, so there was a
Okay.
lot of
Okay.
like, back and forth from them. And their audio engineer, Jaime de la Rosa, he's if we're gonna talk house of rock and audio engineering, Jaime de la Rosa was the guy that held that place down for a decade. He kept the boat floating, man, and everybody will tell
Nice.
you that. It's crazy stuff. But him and I were going to Del Mar at the same time doing audio engineering,
Yeah.
and I was playing the band. So I just, knew Casey off and on here and there, meeting him as the owner and manager, and I just got more and more involved, playing there, hanging out there. I was, a musician. He's a huge fan of Primus.
What? That's
Yeah,
amazing.
I don't know why that's not public information. Um, whatchamacallit. So I remember when they were looking for a New Year's show or something like that. And I think him and I just like talked about it or something, like, oh, Primus. Oh yeah, Primus. Like, because I would play Primus like at open mic. I'm like, oh, here's maybe Too Many Puppies or something like that. Something simple I can play on
Yeah.
there. And he's like, hey man, like, I'm a huge fan of Primus. Saw them back in the '90s doing blah blah blah, and open up for whatever. And it's like, yeah, check out this flyer I got from Primus. Like, the dude's a huge Primus fan.
Nice.
If it wasn't a giant rooster tattoo on his back, it'd probably be Les Claypool. Just, hey, what's up? But yeah. So we just connected on a lot of stuff like that. He gave me a job at the kitchen. I had graduated Del Mar, and you graduate college and you just kind of mess around for a while trying to figure your life out. And I was like,
Yeah.
all right, get a real job. I'm gonna do this music thing. Get a real job. So I got a real job when they opened up the pizza kitchen there at House of Rock, and I was probably there for the first 3-4 months, or I forgot how long. It was a couple of months. Um, I left because I actually got a studio job working with Dylan Eli at the Loop Studio
Yeah,
when it
Dylan.
was here. Yeah. Name drop Dylan Eli. There you go. Casey Lane. Dylan. Yeah. And I mean, after that, Casey and I just, did more and more stuff. And then once I became the head audio engineer there, we just hung out a lot more and just became really good
Nice.
friends. He's from a small town as well, because he was like, "You're from Mathis, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm from Mathis." Saul, there's Saul Padron, another name drop there. So he's from Mathis too, right? Yeah, and then we had a buddy of ours who was doing like posters and graphic design for us. And he's like, your buddy who does the graphic design, he's from Mathis too. I'm like, yeah. He's like, bro, what's going on in Mathis? I'm like, I don't know, man.
Lots of good
We had
things.
to get out of there. And he's like, well, I'm from a small town as well, so it's like, hey, it makes sense. I'm like, cool, man, appreciate that.
I feel like those small town people, we have that drive that we're like, no, we're going to do something.
Yeah.
Like band was huge where I was from, and obviously band was huge
Where were you originally from? Let's
Mathis
talk
was.
about you, man.
No. I'm from Kingsville, and if
Kingsville.
Kingsville had the band, but they had nothing else. So you're either in
Mathis.
band or you're one of the guys that tried to play football or tried to play baseball or whatever else. But band was like their thing. So I feel like all these, I have friends that are band directors now, and like it's like these small little towns that have this 200-piece marching band, and you're just like, what? Not even the Corpus schools have 200 pieces in their marching band. They're like, oh yeah, we audition 250 and we take the best 200. And you're like, you have auditions.
You have to reject people? Jeez.
Yeah. So that's awesome to hear. I'm super happy to hear that Casey's from a small town, because I feel like, yeah, we connect with that even more.
Yeah,
So
man. Like my friends and I, like you being from a small town is very, very comfortable. Is very, very comfortable. I'm actually going to be moving back to the family home in a couple of months. So this is kind of cool. This podcast kind of like rounds out like, hey, came to Corpus, did some cool stuff, did a podcast. All right, time to move back to Mathis. I don't have to be in Corpus. COVID, it's whatever. It's so I don't have to be here every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, you did speak a little bit about like your Primus tribute band,
Or
but what else is going on musically? Like,
musically.
I know you can't like musicians can't stop. It's like we have our hand in like everything. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So you have your Primus group with Dave Adams, I believe.
Yeah, Dave
Yeah.
Adams. Name drop there. Anybody
So
know Dave Adams?
I think everybody knows Dave Adams.
Yeah, everybody's heard his snare. Yeah. God.
Yeah, and felt it.
Yeah. It just like slaps across the face. God, dude.
So what else are you doing musically?
Oh
Like
man.
what's on the horizon for you musically?
That's funny because I see people out and they're like, "Hey man, when's the next time you're gonna play?" And I'm usually like, "Pick a band." I'm sorry, I don't mean to be mean. Sorry, but it's like, there's a couple at a certain point. It was like, "Hey, I saw you play mariachi. That was awesome." And then some like, "Hey, I saw you in the Pink Floyd band. That was awesome." And someone's like, "Hey, I saw you in the Primus band. That was awesome." Or, "Hey, I saw you filling in with Splendiferous. That was awesome." And so it was. Um, it's always been a fun thing like that. If I have time to do it, then yeah, I'm gonna go do it and have some fun. Right now, musically, it's the Primus band, poetry and prose. It's the
Nice, yeah.
Any Color You Like band, where we do Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
That's a really fun band, and they're just like, yeah, I have fun playing this stuff. Like playing music isn't like my main thing where I make my income. So obviously it's audio engineering, but I the times I do have, yeah, I'll go and I can play out. I don't do mariachi much anymore. I started focusing much more on audio engineering. I was saying no to mariachi gigs so I could say yes to audio engineering gigs, to record somebody or to do some live sound. And so it was like, everything's on the weekends. I'm gonna have to make a choice. So it's
Yeah.
it's playing those bands. It's recording under the Aux Studio moniker, and it's doing live sound at House of Rock and also Second Baptist Church. Chris
Nice.
Reedus, yeah, another Chris Reedus, yeah, amazing studio drummer. Oh man, like and like I asked Dave and Chris, like I have all these top tier friends that do very specialized things, so I could be like, hey, so when you're tuning a drum, blah, blah, da, 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 whatever, and then in turn they'll be like, hey,
Yeah.
when you're miking a thing, yeah, da, 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 so
Yes.
that goes of having that relationship with people that are very specialized or maybe do what you do but at a much higher level, that hey, let me ask a question and kind of see what's going on.
Yeah, I feel like the digital recording thing has opened up that community
Mm-hmm.
because now everybody has a way to, just setting up the podcast. We're like, do you guys need audio? Do we need to send a
Mm.
Zoom to your house and that way you can? And they're like, no, we're good. And it was like everybody
Yeah,
was saying, it's
yeah,
like, wow, everybody this increases community because like we're trying to figure it
yep.
out and other people are trying to figure it out, so it develops that really cool. I don't know. I guess you would call it a subgenre of just audio people. They're working at stuff, here in the coastal bend, or pretty much everywhere, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely we're seeing it here in the coastal bend.
Yeah, like high end recording audio has become like a really approachable like hobby, so it's
Yeah,
like, yeah, I can, anybody can just go get, excuse me, really edit that out, really decent sounding recording equipment, like just go get a Scarlett, go get yourself a Rode, decent microphone cable, and bam, that's it. I started
yeah,
telling people, or when I was getting into it, I realized like this is a really, really great time to get into audio because it's so much cheaper now. Because before it's like,
yeah.
you got to get a console, you got to get a tape
Mm-hmm.
machine, you got to know how to work the tape machine. You know, yeah, it was so much more convoluted in the full analog days. I mean, people talk about like how great like analog is, but it's like, man, it's kind of tough making sure like all that stuff just works and it keeps
Yes.
working. Maintenance.
Yeah.
But that's part of that sound. Like you're going into something and you're kind of breaking it. You're kind of like getting into it, and it's like, yeah, now that's that saturation. The sound of analog's cool. Working with it might be a little tougher. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Aux Studio.
Yeah. So Aux Studio, it's basically me. That's it. You call it Aux Studio. It's me on the phone. It's not somebody else from
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Philadelphia or something. I started it. So I did time with Dylan Eli at the Loop Studio. So shout out to him
Yeah.
and Michelle,
Yes.
his wife, in California now. Um, I was working there with them. I had a lot of cool stuff. Great time, and they made the choice that, hey, we're gonna move to California. And so I was like, oh man, okay, cool. I'll I'll make my own studio. I'll whatever clients that I have here working with me, I can take those over. I'll get a space. I'll take out my savings, just dump it all into there,
Yeah.
and we're gonna make this jump. We're gonna do this. And so they had moved out. This goes to a whole concept of like what we do as a gig culture. Um, it's at any moment the phone could stop ringing,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a terrifying like industry to be in. Not only, and this, like I said, I thought about this stuff for a long time. Not only is it like you should be versatile, and hopefully you can get that phone to start ringing because people think you're worth it and you're valuable enough. But then, okay, I need to keep that phone ringing, and at any moment it
Yeah.
can just stop because we do, like, I've always known we're not essential. What we do is fun. We thrive when the economy is thriving. When the
Yes.
financial crisis happened, like, you know gigs started going down, stuff like that. The industry wasn't happening too much, but um yeah, and that was the thing with COVID. When that dropped, it was like, yeah, the phone just stopped ringing for everybody. And I knew that I always had to be prepared for something, and just like know that at any moment people would just stop calling me to do audio work. Like, maybe they don't like
Mm.
my work or whatever, for whatever reason. It's like it can all
Yeah.
just go away because we're incredibly lucky to like do something like this and have a flow of income through it as well. Like, we can really enjoy something with our lives, put a lot of effort into it, and it can help us maintain. um so yeah, that was a crazy concept. Man, I forgot what the question was. I totally went into something way deeper
Oh.
then.
Oh no, 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 no! You're good. Like I was just asking about the studio, and
Oh
and
yeah.
and
So
yeah.
anyway, back to the loop. uh so they head out, they close the studio down, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna find a space, put all my money into it, and we'll see what happens. And I came up on the name Aux Studio. um and I was like, okay, cool. I like that name. And the kind of idea was that I never wanted to own a studio because that just seemed like a lot of money and a lot of business stuff. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
owning a studio is a huge, thing to undertake. Working in somebody's studio, now that sounds like a cool idea. Like, I can learn all this audio engineering stuff and then just show up to somebody's studio and be like, boom, 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 cool, awesome, thank you very much. And then, here's your cut, here's my cut, and it all works out. So kind of like the whole idea of Aux Studio was that every studio I work in is an auxiliary of me. So
Nice.
it worked out to where I haven't had to like go buy a space or something like that, due to great circumstances and some kind friends of mine. Um, like, I usually do recording out of Delmar, and the cool thing about that is that I do that under the stipulation that anything I record there, I get to use in turn, for educational purposes.
Nice.
So everything that I have there at Delmar, anybody that's come through, I've, not everybody I've shown in class, but it's like, hey, here's a very unique situation, something that happened or something that is common that you should be aware of, that kind of went on. Check it out and play it for them, show them, what we did, or how it all worked out. Right now that Delmar isn't allowing anybody on campus, I'm the kind gentleman from Harbor City Sound Lab, Matt Roussel and
Yeah.
Brian, they're letting me rub shoulders over there and hang out in their space. And so as Aux Studio, I can go to Harbor City Sound Lab and do some work. Then bam, cool, awesome, done. And
Nice.
now recording technology, like I have my RME Babyface interface. And I take that over there with my mics, in my laptop, and that's it. You know, and I use their
Nice.
infrastructure, and boom, done.
What do you think the most important thing is for a studio? Like, is it gear? Is it the room? Is it the what would you say is makes or breaks a session?
So what makes or breaks a session is communication.
Oh,
That's
nice.
that's the main thing. Understanding understanding somebody. What we do is a very, very personalized interaction with somebody. And so um, there's a class at Del Mar called interpersonal communication. And I was like, that what the hell does that mean? And when I went to the class, I'm like, I learned all this stuff like a long time ago. I grew up with some unique situations and experiences. So I was like, yeah, understanding somebody, knowing how to communicate with somebody, and interacting with them in a way that they can receive or listen very well. That's something from my past experience that I really bring to the table. That okay, let me understand you and try to get you're trying to express something that is inside of you that you maybe can't fully articulate. And my job is to understand you as a person, an individual, and to let that happen.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and
Well,
and and yeah, there's I've had some failed sessions because I didn't understand the person or the situation, and some really cool stuff happened because it's like, okay, cool, I'm fully aware and understanding kind of what's going on. So communication, communication on the most basic things, and communication on the most like abstract metaphysical thing. I just realized my light went out. It's nice darker. Yeah,
nice little mood lighting.
yeah. This is cool.
Well, that's at the top. So, yeah, where does everything else fall in? Or is it just like we can do anything with anything?
You mean as far as like what a studio needs?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
What do you mean doing anything with anything?
So, like, I can record in any room, in any situation, get a good sound. Or there's some like specific things that you're like,
Uh,
well, you probably need, some bass traps or, you know, good monitors. You gotta be able to hear, or, what I mean.
the I mean with any you can go to Guitar Center, and anything they have in the recording section, that's fine. That's totally fine. Like we're in a really great time in recording history. Like it's insane. The main thing is like the source, really. Or I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, you can pick the source, but like if you want to talk about something that's going to give the biggest influence, then we're going to talk about the room, like your actual acoustic environment. Because I mean, maybe you want to record something that sounds trashy or whatever, so you record trash. But if you're recording the trash outside or inside, like you're trying to get a very specific thing, your environments, being aware of how things are reflecting and how they're going to sound, because that, I mean, that does give an influence on your recording, big
Yeah.
time. I mean, if you're going to alter the spatial sounding of it later, then you have to understand that we need to remove that in the recording process so it's not an influence. Or if you really want that, then okay, let's put this in a tunnel, and then we'll like side it, and then that's the sound that we're gonna kind of want. Or we just need kind of something generic and in general, like understanding that is very, very crucial. Like drum rooms, that's the biggest one. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. You guys
um,
have that amazing room. I mean,
it
just crazy room.
yeah. That's it's a we have the Studio A. So, oh yeah, so Delmar, we have fantastic studios that nobody can use right now. Um, yeah, there's the big Studio A, which can fit like an entire orchestra, and a band. A whole choir in there, so it's really massive. There's Avion systems. It's full. I mean, well, there's a recording booth in there, like a small little box that we have in
Yeah, yeah,
Studio
yeah, yeah.
A. Um, that was what we learned in. That box was in a classroom, and it was Bissell like, all right, cool, so we're gonna record some stuff, and we go in the box and record and come out, and it's like, that's our recording studio. That was where we started. That was what
That's
I learned.
amazing.
Yeah, so that's how far the SRT program at Del Mar has came along. Like after I graduated and started doing professional work, then we start seeing the pictures. Bissell is like, check it out, new studio. It's like, dude,
Yes.
oh my god! Like, and the SSL console, it's like,
Yes.
kids these days, they don't know. They don't know
They
how they
don't
got it.
know.
They don't know.
Man, there's two SSL consoles in Corpus, right? But I think I saw two. I think I saw one
Well, we
downtown.
have, well, yeah, well, so there's the two at Del Mar.
Oh, I
Uh,
forgot you had the one in Studio. So
the
there's three in
Matrix,
town.
yeah. And Dusty, yeah, El Dusty,
Yes,
yeah,
El
yeah.
Dusty.
He has, I think he has the same one we have in Studio A. Yeah,
Dude,
that's an incredible,
amazing.
yeah, incredible hybrid. I think it's like digital analog. It's got the EQ on it and everything. It's a good console. Yeah, I mean, like, if for me to finally be like, it's an SSL, man, this is cool. Um, yeah, because I think Freddie Records, they in the other room they have a Sony console. I think we'd have to ask Eli Molina. That'd be
He-
another guy you got to have on here because he's breaking it down over at Freddie Records, and I
nice.
believe it's a Pro Tools console in
Yeah, yeah.
the main
The
room.
was the
Yeah,
icon. I
I
think it
think
was.
so. Yeah,
Okay.
and I know
So
Mason Shirley. He got his SSL matrix. I've seen
yes.
the pic. Mason Shirley. There you go. Like I'm trying to just
Yeah.
get
All
everybody's name
these
out there.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like you got,
definitely.
and you started with me, man. You started with me.
Gotta start strong. Gotta start
It can
strong.
only go up from here. It can only go up from here. Yeah. Absolutely.
Man, dude. Well, we appreciate you coming, man. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you'd like to like just kind of touch on before we close this out?
Oh man.
Anything. It can be anything.
You know
Best coffee
what?
places
You
in
know.
town.
Okay. You know what? So you mentioned I have the bird's eye view. So I
Yeah.
see a lot of bands. I see a lot of professional bands. I see a lot of beginner bands. And there's a couple of things I've been sitting on and contemplating of like, like as an audio engineer, people are like, "Oh man, you made it sound so good." And it's like, I don't make you sound good. You make you sound good. I just make it clear what you sound like, whether that be it sucks or it doesn't, you know? Um to not offend me on stage is to not suck. If you don't suck on stage, then all right, cool, we're gonna have an awesome day. Um, so like, there's a couple of things I've been thinking about, like what could help bands that are maybe starting out or like are at kind of like any level here in Corpus, like things that you could do that I've seen most commonly, like vocalists, you know, microphone right in your face. It's not going to come out of your ear. Don't pull
Yeah.
back. All the dynamic stuff like that, as audio engineers, we can handle that. So get as close as possible to that microphone, because not only is it picking you up, but it's also picking up your drummer, who's super heavy handed. Which
Yeah.
leads us to the drummer. Hey, drummers, you know, most commonly they're really exciting those cymbals. They're laying into it. All you have to do is excite them. That's all you really have to do. Get those cymbals to excite up, and you know what, lay into the shells more. Now there are some heavy-handed snare hitters. Oh yeah, they're fine, but more common than not, they're excited about the hi-hat, they're feeling it, and they're like, yeah, but they're kind of like on the kick drum and like on the snare, and it's like, dude, like, bring the shells out more, get
Yeah.
that to
Okay.
sing in the room, and then excite the cymbals. That's all you have to do, because they can handle themselves.
Nice.
um Bass players, which is, that's my home right there.
The forte.
um
Yeah.
New strings, and you're married to the drummer, like, just lock into the kick. I had trouble with this, actually. I like to think I have a pretty good sense of time, and I've played with drummers that are like the caliber for me, that are like there a sense of time. I've been in situations to where drummer's wrong. He's holding back, and I'm like, come on, like this, let's go, and I'm
Yeah.
trying like to bring it up to like, hey, let's stick to me, and that's not a fight you're gonna win. You know,
Mm.
like if it's a marriage, then you need to shut up and do what the drummer says, because now I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I in my head I'm right. It's right here. It's this tempo, and the drummer's like doing whatever. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. He's right. You stick to him. It's gonna sound better that y'all are tight and the wrong tempo than it is for you to be like fighting him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So just stick and lock into it. Guitar players. Guitar players are the number one killer of guitar tone. And
Why?
this is like growing up before I knew audio engineering and good sound and great sound. And it was like, man, this pedal and this tone and this hand wired and this thing and blah blah blah, and my tone and my tone, my tone, my tone, my tone, my tone, and I'm going through like 50 guitar pedals, and it's like, yeah, man, like every pedal, everything you do is affecting your guitar tone. So I would say keep it simple, like always find a way to keep it simpler, and stand in front of your amp, like get a audience perspective of your amp. I had a friend of mine, we were setting up to do a show, and he was playing his guitar, and I was like, dude, like, hey, come down here. And he's like, what's up? I'm like, listen to your guitar. Kink. Oh my god, like, it sounds terrible. I'm like, yeah, I know, like,
Yeah. No.
let's pull that back a little bit. So get perspective. Yeah, those are the things that I would say for like any band. Just like, hey, those are like the most common things that I've seen. Just like that I would, if I told any band any one thing, if I told band anything, it'd be like those things, mostly in generic. Yeah,
Nice. 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 Nice.
and that's my contribution to the bands and musicians of Corpus Christi, Texas, from Ox
Well,
Studio.
you heard it here from the man, from the guy that's taking care of you. Take care of him, and he'll take care of you. That's what's the mantra. Take care of the audio engineer, and he will take care of you.
Yeah,
And no,
yeah,
I hit.
we'll have a good time. We'll have a good time. And it's funny, man. Like, I've come across a lot of TMs and a lot of audio engineers, and I've rarely is this podcast PG-13 or rated R? We can.
Oh, it's up to you. It's up to you.
I've or just if you bleep me out, please use the 1K tone, just super loud. Like, that's always been my favorite.
The
uh,
1K tone.
you just that. Boo! It's so annoying, but I love it, and it's so obvious what the word is. But I've rarely ever met like a straight up asshole, like somebody just shows up and you're like, yo man, blah, 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 and it was like da, 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 da. And it's like, and like that's the dude's personality, that's the way he is, like somebody who's super difficult to work with. I don't think I've ever actually met anybody that's really like that. What I have met are people that have gotten to the end of a stick and they're like not having it, or they're super frustrated, or they're getting shit down on them. Please bleep that. um and they're like, and they're ready to crack, and you just so happen to like be a casualty of whatever they're feeling, because later in the day I'll find out that like okay, they realize something, or they're kind of coming around to it or something like that. So I always, like, going back to the communication thing, it's like I always approach somebody, all these people that are touring and traveling very professionally, even people here locally, I always approach them as professional as possible, try to get them comfortable. It's our house, but you are our guests, and we want to
Yeah.
make y'all feel as comfortable as possible so you can have a great show. That's a big thing. But yeah, I thought that was funny, because you're getting, sometimes you get some big heads that kind of go through there, but most of the time it's somebody who gives you like a bad experience or something like that. More often than not, they're going through something, and you just kind of caught wind of it.
Yeah.
You were happened to just kind of be there, and they snapped at you, maybe. And don't let that stuff bother you or get to you.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody's just trying to get through the show, have a good show. Everybody's goal is the same. We're just
Right,
trying to
right.
figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I appreciate you so much, really and truly. Like, this was great getting to know you. I love it because a lot of the people that I'm interviewing, I haven't got to hang out with. Well, we definitely haven't gotten to hang out with in
Yeah.
months because of all
Yeah.
this. Uh, but dude, it means so much for you to be here, dude. Really and truly, thank you so much.
It's an honor. It's definitely an honor that you asked me to be on the first one. So if anything goes wrong, you can just delete this from the history and it never existed,
This is
and go
coming
talk
up.
to
This is
some go
coming
go
up.
talk to Casey Lane. That's a who's who in this town. Yeah.
Definitely gonna be Casey and Mason and everyone else.
I'm
But
excited for the Mason Shirley episode. Yeah, when that comes up. You know who else? Robert Beltran. He's another really great engineer.
yeah,
He
where's he
does
at? What's the name of his studio?
Precision Studio,
Precision.
and he's
Yes.
also front of house engineer for Brewster Street.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I got to do some filling gigs over there, and it's a fun place. It's a fun place over
Yeah,
there.
they have
Yeah,
an icon too, don't they?
they
I think.
have is it an Avid?
Where's it's not the icon. What's it called?
I forgot already.
Man, those Avid concerts are monsters. So
Is it Digico or Avid?
it's definitely Avid because it's got those cool little mushroom
Hmm.
knobs. Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
they look cool, but it's like stupid. Work? Will you work?
Well, it is outside, right?
Yeah, yeah, and man, it's audio engineering is or live sound. Live sound is putting audio kind of where it just really doesn't belong, man. But you know what? Like a big mantra for me for live sound for studio is that we make it work. Like
Yeah.
that's what we do. Ken Pooch talks about that, where it's like you're not hiring me to get it to sound great or to sound awesome, or I can run this console. When the PA is on fire and the console is upside down and everything, there's a huge riot, we're gonna make it work. And it's like, yeah, yeah, it's like we make it work. That's essentially all we really do. Yeah, I don't make you sound good. You make you sound good. That's you hear that, Corpus Christi? I never made you sound good. Every band I've ever done sound for, I've never made you sound good. You make you sound good. Pat yourself on the back.
Well, dude, we appreciate all you do. Guys, go check out Ox on Instagram, Ox Studio on Instagram.
Yeah, yeah. I'm on Instagram, Ox Studios _Texas, I think, or something like that. And then I'm
Yeah.
also on Facebook. I'm not too much social media active, but hey, send me a DM or give me a call or something. We'll chat
Yeah,
about
make it work and check out Poetry and Prose, right? Sorry, that's tough
po-
to say.
poetry and prose, a tribute to Primus. Yeah, yeah. I may
Yes.
I may do some video stuff on there. You asked what I was doing musically, and I'm just like I'm just working, surviving, doing mixes. Doing teaching at Del Mar. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, maybe I'll put up some. I picked up my bass, hand picked it up in a long time, so I was like, I'm just play some stuff. This will be fun. Yeah, just had a good
Well, we
jam
didn't
out.
get into the gear, but right quick for those of us that are very curious,
Yeah.
what are you playing bass wise? What's your gear right now? What bass? Because I've seen you with the jazz bass, I've seen you
Hmm.
with an Ernie Ball bass, I've seen you with a sound gear bass. What's your flavor these days?
Man, how long have you known me? And I've just
I'm just a gearhead, and I'm usually in the back. Like, oh yeah, it sounds
that's
cool. What's
funny.
that?
Yeah. So my main girl is the Ibanez Prestige. I was
Nice.
incredibly lucky to get that one used, and that's the probably the greatest bass that I own right now. Like craft wise and sound wise, I'm like, this covers a lot of ground, and it sounds amazing. So I use that one a lot, and it's really limber for the Primus stuff. So any of the four
Nice.
string stuff, yeah, yeah. So it's like the Ibanez they have like that fast kind of neck, really slim. Yeah, and it has a much more like modern bass tone. That kind of whoa. You can get
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that really
yeah.
kind of speaking kind of mid range. It's got Bartolini pickups on it, so yeah,
Ooh,
it's got that
nice.
modern kind of bite that you hear from basses. I do have a that Mexican bass. Yeah, it's a Fender Jazz Mexican.
Okay.
Actually, it's a weird one because when I got it, it said, so it says like Fender, or no, usually Squires will say Squire,
Yeah,
Fender.
yeah,
This one, I still have the headstock, and it says Fender, Squire.
interesting. That may
Yeah,
have been one of the Japanese, or one of the, you remember the Japanese ones are just so sought after because
I don't
they're like
remember.
they're
Yeah.
yeah, they're like the craftsmanship is just
Oh
so
wow.
amazing out there. So like
Right.
Rome has a baritone from Japan,
Oh
and
nice.
he bought it at Sound Vibes, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a long scale baritone B2B, and he bought it for like $500 back in the early 2000s, probably 2009 or 2008, probably late 2000s, and
Right.
now they're going for like 1500. And I
Whoa.
was like, what's going on? It was like, dude, crafted in Japan, made in Japan.
Wow.
Those are like American killers.
Wow.
So like you may want to check that out. That may be
No,
something.
yeah, I looked it up because there was so little information on it, and the best I could surmise was that I think it was like there was a fire at one point in California, and they were like, "All right, well, let's get these rejected ones out of here," and just like the bodies were actually um Fender like wood, but the electronics, they're like, we'll just put Mexican electronics on it, and cool, we'll sell it
Okay,
as something like whatever. You know, the neck is ruined, so I had to get that replaced with Warmouth.
I'm
Um,
a closet bass head. Like
bass is a lot
just
of fun. Yeah.
dude, yes.
The other one that I have is the Schecter 5 string. I think it's like a Diamond series or something like that.
Okay, yeah,
Uh,
nice.
it was used at Guitar Center. I showed up and I was like, "What do you got in today, boys?" You know, and they're like, "We got this one." And I started playing it. I'm like, "Wow, this is cool." So I have a lot of fun with that one. Um, I had a couple. I used to talking about bass heads, man, and I doing all the Primus stuff. I used to have ESP LTD 254 with the tremolo installed on it.
Whoa.
Yeah. So if you want to stalk further, there's a video of our first Primus show. It's not that great, but I'm using that black ESP bass, and I have the tremolo on it. Yeah,
Definitely gotta check that out.
that one was stolen from me years
Oh,
ago. Yeah, I used to have a 6 string Schecter. That was awesome. Cherry Fireburst, cherry red. But no, that one's gone
well,
as
this
well.
is a good plug for that because if anybody sees an ESP with a trem on it, that's
There's
very specific.
not many up there. Yeah.
Not many.
Absolutely, man.
Well, man, again, thank you so much. Like, it means a lot. This is gonna air on the 2nd of October,
Oh
so that's
wow.
our initial. So, and I'm really looking forward to maybe a follow up interview for season 2, maybe season 3, if you're down for that.
I'm the
And
first. Yeah, so I got to
we
be
can
the
get
first
even
return.
more in the weeds and really like I don't know, talk about something like gain structure. I don't know.
Oh yeah, yeah. That literally is another like 45-minute conversation right there. Yeah.
Well, dude, we appreciate your time, and when it's all over, let's hang out, please. We'll just
Absolutely, man.
we'll
Yeah.
geek out some more. But thank you again so much, man. I appreciate it.
This was a huge honor, man. Thank you for having me, for being for being the first, and thank you for doing this. Like this is a really cool thing. When you said like what do musicians and stuff, like what do we need to do as a city, like stuff like this
Yeah.
is cool. This stuff to like really highlight what's kind of going on, and like there's a lot of amazing talent here, man.
Yes.
So like I said, I blushed a bit where I was like, whoa, me? What are you talking about? Like all these other people that I could just name drop that are like, dude, go talk to them. Go talk to Dr. Bissell. Check out what he's got to say.
He's
I
on
mean,
the list. He's
yeah,
definitely on the
sweet,
list.
sweet. Yeah, man. There's a lot of really cool people, a lot of talented people. Um, yeah. Thank you for doing this. I'm excited to see this grow.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you. We'll catch you soon.
Sweet, dude.
All right. Once again, Alex Hernandez. Check him out. We'll see you guys soon on the Bandemic podcast.
Yeah.